I lost all of my money. Oh, thank God.
Huh?
What might be the hardest thing to explain as a gambling addict to someone without a gambling addiction is this weird sense of relief that I would feel when I would run out of money.
Huh?
When I had no other options for the rest of that night, there was a calmness, there was a relief, because I knew that I couldn't do any more damage the way I had been just moments prior. Today, I want to talk about the psychological concept that causes that emotion, and then I want to give you solutions. I want to tell you how to use financial controls to rebuild your life and establish that value for money as a problem gambler that we used to have before. Our brains as people with gambling addictions are a really difficult thing to understand, especially if you're not someone that's struggling with something or ever had an addiction issue. But essentially what an addiction is that our brains get rewired to crave pleasure, and we think that we need it to survive. When it comes to a gambling addiction, betting money releases dopamine in our brain, which is that feel-good pleasure chemical. And when we feel good, we go, oh my God, this high is awesome. I want to do it again. But the problem is that as you continue to gamble and time continues to progress, your baseline for feeling good shifts. And you start to have to gamble a lot more, or at least a lot more often, to feel that thrill that you felt in the beginning. Then, after you're done gambling, your brain, the way it's designed, it has to come back down to an equilibrium point, meaning that the higher you go, the lower you're gonna crash after you're done gambling. Now, this is what leads us to continuously go back, regardless of if we win or lose money. Because the thrill isn't actually coming from winning, it's just coming from being involved. The psychological factor that causes us to feel a sense of relief when we know that we're about to go on that crash is that we stop this illusion of control that we had when we were at the peak of that dopamine high. When we are gambling, there is uncertainty. That's the stimulation, the not knowing what's going to happen next. But that takes a lot of mental calories to maintain. And this thrill, this adrenaline, this rush, we're going and going and going, and then all of a sudden, we're not uncertain anymore. We know we're out of money. Why does that cause relief? Because it's such a torment to not know what's gonna happen next. You keep looking and stressing and thinking, am I gonna win? Am I gonna lose? Am I gonna win? Am I gonna lose? Your mind goes on overdrive and it gets to this point where finally you can calm down. You know, you're gonna feel like crap. You know you're gonna feel like crap, but at least it's now something certain. It's not this sense of endless anticipation. And so when we lose that last dollar, reality hits, and it sucks. Hey, we're out of money. But now, at least we know what's happening. This is, of course, a momentary relief, and then grief starts to set in. We have remorse. Why did we make the decisions we made? Why didn't we stop after this amount? Why didn't I walk away when I was up? These are questions you might have asked yourself before. But I want to tell you what to do next to turn everything around, because that's going to cause a lot of depression, anxiety, and sadness if that's your reality all the time. I really want to help you turn it around, and I'm going to tell you how I did. But before I do, I want to introduce myself. My name is Rob, and I'm recovering from a gambling addiction, obviously. I made my last bet November the 12th of 2022. And since that point, I've made it my mission to help other people avoid making the same mistakes that I made. Because I used to gamble for 8 hours a day, chasing after a big win that I didn't even need, and it made me miserable. I was living a fraction of the life that I deserve to live, and I don't want that for you. So smash that subscribe button if you want to learn from my mistakes. And now I'm gonna tell you exactly what I did to reestablish my value for $1. When I decided on November the 12th that it was going to be my last bet, I knew that after a couple of days, because this is what always happened before, I was going to forget about the pain, I was going to feel better, and then I was going to try to win everything back. So what was really pivotal for me, and what actually made a huge impact on my recovery, was being open and honest with my family and telling them that they needed to take control of the finances. I didn't want handouts from people. I didn't want bailouts from people. I didn't want anyone to solve my problem. But what I needed, and whether or not I really wanted it or not, it's what I did, was someone to have control of the account so that when I had a temptation or an urge to gamble to try to get that money back, I couldn't act on it. So I cut up all my debit and credit cards, closed those accounts, and kept one debit account open. That debit account, I changed the login and the password, and I switched the email so that I couldn't reset the password. Then I gave control of that to my family. We worked out how much cash I would need on a weekly basis to survive, and we put the rest of the bills and stuff on auto pay. So now everything, as soon as it came in from working, which I was working 70 hours a week at this point to pay off the debt, it would go straight towards the debt repayment, and I'd have enough at the end of the week to get a cash withdrawal that my family would give me, and I would spend that week. So my life became one where when I would have an urge, I didn't have a bank to go to. I didn't have a debit card to put in on a website. So I wasn't able to actually spend and act on that urge. And in the end, you're not going to want to live like that forever, right? But what you're doing when you're recovering from a gambling addiction is you're buying yourself time, because that brain process we were describing earlier with that dopamine high, well, it actually gets better. Your brain begins to heal itself through a concept called neuroplasticity. This is when you start to experience dopamine like a normal person again, like someone that doesn't have a gambling problem. And eventually, slowly but surely, you're gonna find pleasure in the smaller things again, and you're going to want to gamble less. It was important that when I was doing this process, I also knew what my expenses would be so that I wasn't feeling like I constantly needed to ask my mom for money, because it was my money. But I didn't want to have the ability to light that money on fire. So having a budget ahead of time and knowing how much I had to spend on any given week gave me freedom within the confines of what really wasn't a free situation at all. Now, one thing that people struggle with when they first quit gambling is this feeling of regret. I can't believe I did that. I have to work now and I'm making, $20, $25 an hour maybe if you're in a good situation. And it's like, man, how could I have wasted so much? Well, these feelings are going to eat at you. And you're not going to be living a good life if every day you're remembering the horrible things that you did to yourself. So instead of treating them as terrible things in your past, use them as valuable, very, very expensive learning lessons. When I stopped saying, man, I can't believe I lost that much money, and I started saying, I'm glad I don't have to lose a single dollar and I had to spend that much to learn that lesson, it became a much different situation. We can sit around all day and kick ourselves and feel sorry for ourselves, but none of that is going to make any difference in our lives in a positive way. It might make a difference in a negative way, if that's what you were looking for. So using the past as a learning lesson sounds corny, whatever. It really does make a difference. When you start to think positively, good things start to happen. We become what we think about most of the time. When you are working through the debt repayment process, you're naturally going to start to appreciate the value of a dollar. That's why bailouts are a bad thing. If someone swoops in and fixes your situation without you having to go through any kind of negatives, you're probably going to go back and gamble more and put yourself right back in that same hole after enough time. But if you're digging yourself out day by day, dollar by dollar, through a second job, through a side hustle, through working hard, you're going to start to appreciate that, hey, this stuff takes a lot of work to come by. Because a lot of us, we were trying to get rich quick. We realized it was really just a fast way to light money on fire. When we start to work hard, our value of a dollar comes right back to us. It might not be sexy, it might not be glamorous, and it might take a lot longer than we want it to, but this method of doing things, it really does work. So I've been at rock bottom before. I've been in debt, but having clarity about what you need to do and having peace of mind knowing that you don't have the ability to light your life on fire in a moment of weakness really can make a difference. Your value of money is going to come back, but it's all going to happen one day at a time. Check out this video if you want to hear more about my gambling addiction story.